Hey you guys, this is Professor Vitt. This is Module 3, Monsters and Dragons. In the right-hand side there you see a picture of Bigfoot. It's taken from the Patterson-Gimlin film, taken in I think 1967. Patterson didn't enjoy such a good reputation. Gimlin has. Gimlin is considered to be a real upright guy. He stands by what he says. People have reservations about the timeline of this film and also just various aspects of it. So it's a really interesting piece of history and Bigfoot lore. This module is worth 10% of your final grade. The due date is January the 18th at midnight. Make sure you put your name on there so I know who you are, whether or not you finished the packet. Okay, task 1, you're going to watch just an overview of arguments and validity, strongness, and weakness. That's from myself. Now you may think, well, I'm just going to skip it if he's not asking me any questions on it. I'd take a peek. It might save you when you get to chapter 3 and they start talking about arguments and validity and so forth. Let's see. Then evaluate claims 1 through 10 on page 58. Now, task 3 of 8, you're going to be watching a movie called Here Be Dragons from a popular author named Brian Dunning. He's sort of a professional skeptic. Now, tell me what the point of calling the movie Here Be Dragons is. Answer some of these questions. And most importantly, I want you to tell me whether or not you agree with information that Brian Dunning is giving. I've had students who hate this guy, and I've had students who love him. Let me know. In other words, they love what he has to say. Other students don't. If you don't like what he has to say, make sure you tell me why. You're not going to hurt my feelings, but I want to hear it, right? And then answer 8. If you, are you possibly gonna be prey to confirmation bias, not disconfirmation bias, based on your disagreements with him? Do a Google search on this guy and tell me, where is he right now? And do you think that this affects his credibility or not? That will be interesting. Your 4th task out of 8, you're going to post on Moodle. There's going to be a chat room on Moodle. It's just going to be item number 3, Bigfoot Forum chat. And you're going to tell me on a scale of 1 to 10, how much of a believer in Bigfoot are you? 1 means total disbelief. 10 means you're absolutely certain he does exist. Then give me 3 reasons why you believe the way that you do. I used to have a speaker come to my class. He was an educator, a fellow educator, who had been in Northern California and purported to have a face-to-face encounter with a Bigfoot, right? And so that was his reason. I never had anything like that, but that would be one of yours. So maybe, I don't know, all sorts of people take this class. Maybe you've had an experience on this, right? And then would your answer to 1 or 10 mean that you're more or less likely to commit confirmation bias? If you're really certain of something, then you may be less willing to consider evidence against it. Right? And that's sort of what I'm driving at. Now, task number 5, you're going to read about Bigfoot from another professional skeptic named Ben Radford. This is a good link. You're going to generate a 1 to 2 page outline of Ben Radford's article. You'll cut and paste it right here, right? So you're like, this is my outline. Okay. And you're also going to turn this outline with your paper. And whether you know it or not, you've been effectively writing your paper in task 5 when you do that. You're starting to anyway. And then you're going to respond to somebody's post in task number 4. So they may be that you agree or disagree with Ben Radford or with them. What I want you to do is tell me whether or not you think Ben Radford would agree with the person's post, and then tell me whether or not you would agree with Ben Radford. In other words, globally, what do you make of the other person's claim? Okay, now, task 6 of 8 is you're going to read a really fun article by Bindernagel concerning what he thinks is evidence for the existence of Bigfoot. And it's unusual in that it's presented sort of as an academic article, right? So it's a really interesting article to read. I would focus on his 5 pieces of evidence on pages 55 to 56 when compiling your 2-page outline. 2 pages, I just say that to give you a ballpark figure. If it's 3, I'm not going to lose sleep, and if it's 1, I'm not going to die, but it better be pretty detailed if it's just 1 page. Okay, task 7, you're going to put all of this together. You're going to take what you learned in watching Here Be Dragons and reading the books and watching the videos about what arguments are, and then you're going to take what you learned about Bigfoot on both the skeptic and believer side, and you're going to apply it here in this fallacy worksheet. You're going to pick 10 out of 25 of these claims to talk about. So tell me whether or not it's a fallacy and whether or not you find this piece of evidence convincing. Yeah, so that's, and I put more on there in the event that when you're writing your paper, you're running out of stuff to talk about, you can't remember. Those might be sort of jumping off points. Okay, here we go. Task number 8. This is the doozy. This is you writing your Bigfoot paper. It's going to be 15% of your final grade. And remember, it's going to be turned in along with this task. You're gonna cut and paste your paper right into this document. You don't need to turn it in anywhere else. So here you go. Task 8 of 8. So in other words, if when you're turning in your paper, you're turning in your paper with your packet. All right, this is a 4 to 5 page paper. If it's, that's a suggestion. If this paper is 5 or 6 or 7 pages, that's fine. If it's 20, well, okay, a little much maybe, but 4 pages, well, what if it's 3 3/4? You don't care. But if it's a 2-page paper, you've probably got problems, right? Okay, you're going to assess what evidence is available for the existence of Bigfoot. You're ultimately going to tell me whether you think there's good evidence for believing that Bigfoot exists. And you will write this paper in 3 parts. So there are 3 parts to do in the paper. And congratulations, you've already done part 1. You're already out of the gates, right? You've worked the fallacy worksheet. You've read Radford and Bindernagel. You've made an outline of Radford and you've made an outline of Bindernagel. Awesome. That's part 1 of the paper. Congratulations. Part 2 of the paper, you're going to draft an outline. Now, you're generally going to pick 3 arguments for and 3 arguments against Bigfoot. Okay? You can pull these arguments anywhere you want, right? I'm not worried about that. But what I want you to do is to tell me whether you think there's enough evidence. You've got to come up with a conclusion on your own. You need to tell me I think there is good evidence or I think there isn't. And I, sort of base my belief accordingly. I am not grading you on your belief, but I just want to know your analysis. So if you do believe in Bigfoot, right, for whatever reason, explain why. It could be personal experience. It could be the weight of the testimony seems greater. It could be, footprint records. It could be whatever it is. Let me know. Now, for each argument that you have to give, you have to kind of tell me, like, this is an inductive argument or this is a valid argument or whatever it is, whether or not there are any fallacies that apply to the argument that you've presented. So, maybe one of your reasons is something like people have always believed in Bigfoot, since the native population, and so it's like tradition or something like that. Well, then that would be an appeal to tradition fallacy. That would just be an example. And then part 3, you're going to write out the paper. Just follow your outline from part 2 and use that to write your paper, and you're done. Now, this is a big module, and so you are going to have a lighter module. I believe it is next week. Let me check, though, just verify. Yeah, and it is, in fact, a lighter week next week because you've taken your exam and you've written a paper this week, so that's a lot of work. Next week's going to be a little bit lighter. It's going to be Module 4, and it's going to be about UFOs. It'll be in 2 parts, Ancient Aliens and UFOs, but you're only going to have to do one of them. The other part will be extra credit, and it'll be pretty weighty. I think it'll be 10% of your final grade. So next week is lighter, if you want to take it a little bit lighter, or it's going to be the same amount if you want to get the extra credit, which is going to be pretty weighty, I think 10% of your final grade. So this is a crunch week. Do your best. Email me if you have any questions or concerns. Okay, you guys, good luck. You're doing great.